If you're running your Airbnb through PriceLabs, you probably did what most hosts do. You connected your listings, you kept the default settings, and trusted the software to take it from there.
A couple of those defaults are giving away money on bookings you would have gotten anyway, and the settings that make the biggest difference are the ones most hosts have never even opened.
Because PriceLabs with no strategy behind it is the same as having no PriceLabs account at all. The software doesn't decide your pricing strategy, it just executes one. And if you've never questioned your settings, the strategy it's running isn't yours.
We've been hosting for over a decade. We've built a multi-million-dollar portfolio, and through our coaching program, Strategic Host, we work inside the PriceLabs accounts of hundreds of hosts every single week.
So we're gonna walk you through our exact setup, the settings we turn on for almost every market, and then the settings we turn off, including the defaults most hosts never think to question.
Copy this setup and you'll come away with a calendar guests can find, a comp set you can trust, and a rate you can explain, instead of a number the software just handed you.
All right, so like we said, we see the inside of a lot of PriceLabs accounts. What we're about to show you are the settings we feel confident recommending across almost every market we have seen.
That said, your specific numbers, your minimum stay requirements, your far out premium, those need to be dialed in for your property and your market. Think of this as the framework. The exact numbers are something we help every client customize once they're inside Strategic Host.
So now, let's get into the PriceLabs settings we love.
First up is a tool inside PriceLabs called Help Me Choose a Base Rate. Most hosts swirl around the question of whether the suggested rate is right or wrong. The base rate is accurate, and it is the starting point for your whole pricing strategy. We like this setting because the base rate is reacting in real time to what is happening in your market.
So here's a setting most hosts get wrong inside this tool. You can choose to adjust based on market or adjust based on listing performance. We recommend adjust based on market for almost everyone.
Adjusting based on listing performance only makes sense if you are consistently pulling in an average daily rate well above your market. If that is you, that setting can work. For everyone else, adjust based on market keeps you tied to what is happening around you instead of chasing your own past performance, especially if you are underpriced, which we hate to break it to you, a lot of you are.
Okay, next up is your minimum stay settings. We recommend keeping these as least restrictive as possible. Let me say that again for all of you in the back. We recommend keeping these as least restrictive as possible if you're in this game to make money. In our market, that means a 2-night minimum on weekends and a 1-night minimum on weekdays.
This is a visibility strategy. The more open your calendar is, the more calendar dates that you have available means better search visibility on Airbnb. Every night you block off with a restrictive minimum stay is a night a guest cannot even search and find your property.
All right, we're gonna give you some very specific examples here, but the bigger lesson is this. A host will tell us bookings have completely stalled and they have no idea why. Well, their first instinct is to blame the market, to say it must be more saturated now, or to blame a new tool like PriceLabs or their PMS for somehow killing their bookings. What they should be doing first is checking their own settings, because something is almost always broken on their end before it's ever the market.
We have seen hosts requiring a 3-night minimum on weekends, actually sometimes even a 4, when most guests only have a 2-night weekend to book. We have seen a calendar where every single Saturday, for somehow it's blocked off, so a guest can't even attempt to book a weekend stay. Different mistakes, same root cause. If your bookings stall, check your own calendar before you start blaming everything else around it. Another setting that we love and use daily is the comp set builder. You find 7 to 9 comparable properties that are similar to yours and build them into a group.
A group comp has your same bedroom count and the same amenities. It also needs to match your quality level. If you're at a 5-star host, you should not have a 4.67 host in your comp set. That property is not competing for the same guests you are.
Strategy matters here too. If a property in your comp set has a 30-day minimum stay, that is a midterm rental. That is not a short-term rental. Do not add them to your comp set. If you're comparing yourself to a completely different business model and making pricing decisions based on data, that has nothing to do with your guest.
This is how you know if your instincts about your own property are accurate or if you've just been set in your ways. If every property in your comp set is running a certain minimum stay or a certain rate and you are way out of line with all of them, then that's your sign something needs to change. It's not about copying your competitors. Do not get me wrong, because most of them are not doing things correctly. It is about knowing where you stand.
This is a good one.
The last setting in this section is far out premium, and it is the one that takes patience and pays off the most. We never want to be booked out far out for a major date or event. We want to get reservations once the market is at least 50% booked, because that is when we can push our rate even higher.
It makes us literally cringe when someone is in a big event and they're like, I already got booked for next year. We're just like, they left so much money on the table. Being one of the first people booked for a big date in your market is usually a sign you are way underpriced. If you are the very first booking on the calendar for a major event, nobody had time to even compete for those dates yet. The patient host who can look at an open calendar 3 months out and not panic is the one who will make the most money.
All right, here's what it looks like in our hosting business. We're in Columbus, Ohio. Go Bucks. The football schedule comes out in April, and until then, we do not know which Saturdays are home games and which are away games. So we protect our calendar for every potential football weekend that will happen at home.
Right, and who are they going to play on those
that's
home
true too.
Saturdays?
Yeah.
Hosts who are not paying attention will book those Saturdays early and lose money. Demand for those weekends is not spiking in April. It spikes very much closer to the actual game date. The far out premium, this ensures that you are not leaving money on the table.
We get double what the suggested rate would be back in April. That means that we are often not sold out until a few weeks before the game. We get antsy watching that calendar sit open just like anyone would, but we trust the data, and it's been worth it every single time.
And we're going to tell you, sometimes it is just days before that game, and it is a big payoff when we are patient.
Knowing which of these settings applies to your market and your property is the work we do with every new client inside of Strategic Host. Go ahead, check out the link in the description to learn more.
Now, let's talk about the settings we turn off, because those are the ones we see hosts just leave on by default. They either don't know what the setting means, or they assume that if it came on by default, it's probably fine and they should keep it.
Last minute discounts. If you are in a market where guests typically book last minute, having the setting auto-apply a discount means you never find out if that guest would have paid your full rate. You're giving away margin on a booking that likely would have gotten you would have gotten regardless.
Right. Like I just said, for our home football games, a lot of those bookings come in last minute.
Yeah.
Then there is the booking recency factor. This is a newer setting that rolled out across accounts, and what it does is gradually apply a discount the longer you go without a booking. We turn this off for most hosts because it is applying a discount without ever asking, why have the bookings been slow? Maybe, if you're in your slow season and you've not had a booking in 2 weeks, that's not a signal to discount. It's just seasonality. If you're discounting the guests you are getting for absolutely no reason, that doesn't make any sense. And if you're in season and should be getting bookings and are not, a small discount is a minor fix on what might be a major issue in your listing or your pricing strategy that needs to be looked at and paid attention to.
The demand factor and the occupancy-based adjustment usually travel together. So let's take them as a pair, okay? Both are good settings in theory, and for highly seasonal markets, they make a lot of sense. If your market swings above 60% occupancy some months and then drops below 35% in others, these settings help you adjust your rates in real time to reflect that shift in supply and demand. So leave them on.
If you are consistently above 50% occupancy year-round, these matter less for you. And if you're an active host who is in your account regularly, adjusting your base rate on a weekly basis is a stronger move than relying on these settings to do it automatically. For the set it and forget it host, they add a layer of protection. But if you are paying attention, which strategic hosts are, and in your account, you want to be making those calls yourself.
And the bigger issue we see constantly, hosts leave on every single out-of-the-box setting at once. Last minute discount, booking recency factor, demand factor, occupancy-based adjustment, all stacked on top of each other at the same time, and they don't question any of it.
Yeah, and when you do that, you're gonna get a booking and you see this rate that came through, and honestly, you have no idea where that number came from. How is it calculated? Was it the demand factor? Was it the recency adjustment? Was it the discount kicking in? If you cannot answer that question clearly and quickly, you do not have a pricing strategy.
And if you don't know what your strategy is, there is no way to know if it's working.
And wait, one more before we go.
Ooh.
And this one is not a setting you turn off. It is the one thing we need to stop ignoring. Inside PriceLabs, there is a neighborhood data graph that shows you exactly where your price sits compared to everyone around you, and almost nobody ever clicks on it. We hear it at every single boot camp we run from hosts who have been paying for PriceLabs for years, and they're like, oh, I've never pressed on that button. And they have never, ever, ever once looked at that graph. If you have never looked at it, you are very likely losing money.
We go much deeper on this graph and how you can fix it to finally know if your price is right so you can fill your calendar at the right rate. Let us teach you how at our next bootcamp. Link in the description to save your seat.